closed doors, I'm a fool for your love.
Hello everyone, my name is Anthony and welcome back to the Anthony James Show here on Sports Fan Entertainment. It is time, MVP. We need to talk about MVP. Who do I think should be MVP? A year ago on my own channel, I talked about who I thought should be MVP, and to me, there were two people that everyone was talking about. One, everybody assumed would win, and he did win. That was Cam Newton. The other one I thought should have been Tom Brady. Carson Palmer he could have talked about too, but I thought Tom Brady should have been MVP last year. And I'll tell you why what I consider MVP might differ from what other people consider MVP, which to me does not make sense of what others think of MVP. Let's look at some of the stats, because this year, unlike last year where there's only like 2, maybe 3 guys that you could consider MVP, this year there's a lot of people, and while I do think I know who will be MVP, there's a good chance he won't be, and there are several names out there I think worth talking about. So, I have the stats here. We have one running back that's going to be talked about, and that is Ezekiel Elliott. He rushed for 1,631 yards. I'm sorry, let's talk about this. As a rookie, he did a fantastic job. I'm excited about his future in the NFL. It'll be fun to see somebody like Ezekiel Elliott dominate in the NFL, hopefully for years. However, that being said, 1,600 yards, I'm sorry, that's not good enough for me. MVP, while I don't think the Cowboys would have been as good without him, I think this still would have been a playoff team. I don't know, the Giants were close, so they might have been able to take the division from them, but I think they could have still at least gone to the playoffs. We saw a 9-7 team and the Lions go to the playoffs in the NFC. I think the Cowboys could have made the playoffs without him. But you know what? I won't take away what he did his rookie year. He did a fantastic job this rookie year. Like I said, I'm excited about his future. But sorry, not MVP to me. Next, let's talk about Tom Brady, who early on in the season, I was considering MVP. He's the guy I thought should have been MVP last year. However, you compare him to another guy, Matt Ryan, his stats are just not as good, and it doesn't help that he did not play in 4 games this year. Throwing only 2 interceptions, that's fantastic. But Matt Ryan is 5 better in the QBR. And overall, Matt Ryan had a much better season than he did. So I'm sorry, as much as I would like to say Tom Brady for MVP. And frankly, if he wins it, I think that's good. I think he's a good MVP. However, I don't think he's the MVP this year. At least not my MVP. So with that being said, there are 2 guys who I think can be narrowed down into the consideration for MVP. They are Derek Carr and Matt Ryan. Both great quarterbacks, both did a very good job this year. If Derek Carr played Week 17, we could potentially be talking about the Raiders in the AFC Championship this year. Because, I'm sorry, I think a Derek Carr-led Raiders team would have stood a better chance at beating the Steelers than what the Chiefs did. And as we saw this past weekend, the Chiefs lost. Who knows what would have happened if the Raiders could have gone 13-3, won their division and been a 2nd seed. We could be talking a lot differently right now. But let's look at their stats, because we need to talk about stats. When it comes to MVP, part of it is having good stats. Derek Carr's stats this year, 3,937 passing yards, and he didn't play 1.5 games. He threw 28 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions and had a 96.7 QBR. On the other hand, we have Matt Ryan. He threw for 4,944 yards, 38 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a 117.1 QBR. Percentage-wise, Derek Carr threw 63.8, and Matt Ryan threw 69.9. Now, you look at those numbers, and to me, it just almost states that MVP should be Matt Ryan by those numbers. And you can argue that. And if he won MVP this year, I don't know what I think of it. I think I'd be in the same boat as I was last year with Cam Newton winning MVP. Here's the thing. MVP. Most valuable player. I spelled this out in my video last year when I was talking about Tom Brady over Cam Newton, and I will spell it out again to you. Most valuable player. Valuable is the key word. If we were talking about the best statistic player this year, okay, yeah, Matt Ryan. We're not. We are talking about the most valuable player. MVP. Valuable. I can't stress that word enough. That's why, to me, Derek Carr should be the MVP. Hear me out. Without Derek Carr, this team almost lost to the Colts in Week 16. If Derek Carr did not play those 4 quarters, they would have lost. Week 17, they lost to the Broncos, which is a good team. They went 9-7. However, if Derek Carr was playing, I'll be honest, I think the Raiders could have and probably would have beat the Broncos. Then we'd be talking differently. The Raiders would have had the number 2 seed. And who knows what they could have done with the number 2 seed. But to me, what it shows as why he should be the MVP is how this team fell apart without him. They nearly lost to the Colts. They lost to the Broncos, and then they lost to the Texans of all teams. If Derek Carr was playing that game, they would have dominated them. Instead, they lost. And they went 0-1 in the playoffs. And we are talking a lot differently about that Raiders team without Derek Carr. On the other hand, we have Matt Ryan. I'm sorry, if you put in a different quarterback, this team would still be good. This defense is better than I expected. This offense is really good. You have a really good running game. You have one of, if not the best wide receiver in the NFL. You have a good offensive line now. Tight ends aren't bad. Not Tony Gonzalez, but it's not bad. This is a good offense. This is a really good offense. They were a record-breaking offense. You can't tell me that you take away Matt Ryan and put someone else in there, that this offense couldn't still be good. Would it be record-breaking? No. But it'd still be a good offense. And that's why, to me, I see the difference in MVP between Derek Carr and Matt Ryan. Because let's consider this, okay? Let's consider this. Drew Brees, why doesn't he win MVP every year? Listen to Drew Brees' stats. 70% completion. 5,208 yards passing. 37 touchdowns. 15 interceptions and a 101.7 QBR. I'm not the biggest fan of a QBR, but it's at least worth mentioning. And let's also consider this. We look at those stats. Over 5,000 yards passing. Drew Brees has more 5,000-yard passing seasons than every other quarterback in NFL history. Just consider that. 15 interceptions. Well, that's a significant amount more than Matt Ryan, over double at his 7. He only has 1 less passing touchdown than him. But he has about 300 yards more than him. His completion percentage is also 0.1 better. So, really, in the grand scheme of things, Matt Ryan, his season, while it was a very good season, is about what Drew Brees did himself. The only difference is Drew Brees was not in the playoffs. Drew Brees was at home watching. Drew Brees' team was not good enough to make the playoffs. He was good, but not his team. And his numbers really weren't that far off from what Matt Ryan's were. Minus the interceptions, those numbers are almost identical and a little bit in favor of Drew Brees. That's the difference. To me, most valuable player is the key word there, valuable. Most valuable player. We are not talking about statistics. Because like I said, if it was a statistics thing, I would completely agree that Matt Ryan should be MVP. The only other person you could argue would be Ezekiel Elliott. That's the only other person you could argue. Because T.Y. Hilton was an MVP, and there's really no defensive player I could say stood out that much that they should be MVP. So it'll be between Matt Ryan and Ezekiel Elliott. And I'm sorry, Ezekiel Elliott was nowhere near as important statistically as what Matt Ryan was this year. However, that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about the most valuable player. We are talking about the player that because of them, the team did better. I will look at my own Vikings a few years ago when Adrian Peterson won it. I think he deserved it. Yes, I'm a Vikings fan, and I know you'll say that, but here's the thing. Without Adrian Peterson, no way that Vikings team would have been in the playoffs. We go back a few years ago, we were talking about J.J. Watt or Aaron Rodgers, and as great as it would have been to see a defensive player win MVP, it was Aaron Rodgers, because at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers took his team to the playoffs. J.J. Watt did not. If J.J. Watt was so valuable, that would have been a playoff team. He was a great player, but was an MVP. Derek Carr. Without Derek Carr, that team shuts down. That team can't win games. That team can't score points. And without Derek Carr, that team had no chance. Do you know what the difference is? With Matt Ryan, that team would still have a chance if he went down. And it's nothing against Matt Ryan. To me, it's just obvious. Derek Carr should be the MVP this NFL season. Statistically, he did not have a better season, but without Derek Carr, the Raiders wouldn't have been a playoff team. The Raiders had no chance without Derek Carr. Without Matt Ryan, the Falcons probably would have still been a playoff team. Overall, you take Matt Ryan and Derek Carr away from their teams, the Falcons are a better record. Even if they don't make the playoffs, which I think they still would, considering how they did this year, they would still have a better They would still have a better record than the Raiders. Plain and simple. To me, it is obvious. Derek Carr should be the NFL MVP this year. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Do you agree with me on Derek Carr? Do you disagree? Tell me what you think. I know a lot of Falcon fans watch this, so like always, you're not going to be happy about what I have to say. Oh well, I think you're starting to get used to it. But yes, tell me your opinions in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like. If you enjoyed me, you can view my content on my own channel. I have a Twitter too, Anthony James TV. That link's in the description. My channel name's Anthony James TV, so you can go there, subscribe for videos. I'm doing recaps on all 32 teams and off-season previews. I'm also doing draft videos. There's plenty NFL on my channel. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and until next time, this is Anthony. I'm out. See you all later.
Behind closed doors, I'm a fool for your love.